Today the world is looking at the example of El Salvador and they wonder how can a country lift itself up so quickly. Just a few years ago, El Salvador was one of the darkest places on the entire planet. But in a short time our country was born again because we remembered that freedom is something that you take.
The El Salvadorian president, Nayib Bukele, has just come out with a speech at the UN, and he just threw them all. And I think there are like 100 countries that are listening to him saying, let's follow that. Just listen, ladies and gentlemen. Grab yourselves a drink. Let me know what you think.
President of the General Assembly, to Your Excellencies, heads of state and government, distinguished members of the delegations with us here today, ladies and gentlemen, when I came to this General Assembly for the first time in 2019, I know that many of you didn't know El Salvador or hadn't even heard of El Salvador. And if you had heard of it, you only had heard bad references, either the most violent country in the world or the country of gangs. Others didn't even know where to put us on the map, but thanks to God, this has significantly changed, and in a very short time. 5 years since my first speech, I come here as the president of a country that now has a voice in the world. In my previous statements to this General Assembly, I talked about the quest for our true independence. For decades, we were in chains due to an imported civil war and then a false peace that left behind more dead than war itself. I also talked about the importance of remembering that the main responsibility of a government is towards its own people and the crucial importance of taking our own fate into our own hands. We shouldn't believe that other countries would save us or that other nations would give us our own freedom. We had to understand this to then have the courage to break these chains ourselves and to reclaim our own legitimate right to be free. Over the last 5 years, El Salvador has been born again. You can see this in the countries and in the people. We have a flourishing tourist industry. We are a country of sports, surf, and entertainment. Thousands of Salvadorians fled war and poverty. We've now made this a country to return to, and our nation was once the global capital of homicides. We've now made this the safest country in our region. This was a great challenge that our nation overcame, but we still have a lot to do and many things to achieve. But we are now on the cusp of true independence and the path towards true freedom. The transformation of El Salvador is without comparison and our success is undeniable. Anyone can visit El Salvador and see this for yourself. Salvadorians, regardless of for whom they voted, where they were born, will at least say whether or not they are within or outside of borders, have come to support all of our decisions, each of the decisions that allow El Salvador to be the country in which people can live calmly and in peace, in which spiritual aspirations beyond material aspirations transcend everything. Today the world is looking at the example of El Salvador and they wonder how can a country lift itself up so quickly. But perhaps this isn't the right question to ask. Perhaps they should be asking a different question. How is the rest of the world falling down so quickly? They say that El Salvador is swimming against the tide because El Salvador has become safer and at the same time the world has become less safe. While the Salvadoran people have become more optimistic, the majority of the people in the modern world have become increasingly pessimistic. And they are right. The world has become divided, depressed, concerned, and hopeless. And it's done so in an unprecedented pace. The free world is no longer free. This is not an exaggeration. Tragically, we have undeniable truth of this every day. New threats of war continue. When the free world became free, it was due to freedom of expression, freedom before the law. But once a nation abandons the principles that make it free, it's only a question of time before it completely loses its freedom. The consequences of this we can see before our eyes. We can see them in some of the most advanced countries in the world. There are simple things, for instance, that cannot be obtained. In other cities, streets no longer belong to the people. They've fallen into the wrong hands, the hands of drug traffickers and gangs. They can't call themselves a free country when people can't freely walk in the street without fear of being attacked. We are also seeing the erosion of freedom of expression. Just 1 decade ago, the biggest platform of social media in the world has had to use its citizens. Western countries have been arrested for their postings on social media. Governments have had to impose restrictions. This isn't a conspiracy theory. These are fully documented, proven facts. You can't win the favor of the people without respecting people. This didn't start just a while ago. We've only just noticed it now because it's accelerating, and this means that we are moving towards a scary inflection point. We are standing before a new dark period for humanity. As a Salvadorian, I recognize these symptoms because we have experienced all of them. We saw the collapse of our nation step by step, and we are seeing these same steps, but this time on a global scale. We cannot, nor do we want to tell other countries what they should do. Every country needs to take its own decisions and do what's best for its people. We can only offer a word of warning to a friend who's gone through a dark period and who has gone through a battle in their own lives. We can't change the direction of the world. El Salvador is too small a country for that. We are indeed the smallest country in the whole of the American continent. This is much bigger than us, and in fact it's much bigger than any nation. We can't prevent the obscure times that are ahead, but what we can do is become a small refuge in light of the approaching storm and try to have hope. In El Salvador, we will not renounce our position. We don't confiscate the goods of people to property of people who don't agree with us. We don't arrest people for their own ideas. In El Salvador, we have freedom of expression, and that will always be protected. In El Salvador, we prioritize public safety over the comfort of criminals. Some people say that we are the country that has imprisoned thousands, but actually, we've freed millions. Now the good people are living free, without fear, with freedoms and human rights fully respected. We want our people to prosper. That's why we foster innovation and new ideas. We understand that we need to have a safe space for ideas to flourish so that we can have research and experiments. We shouldn't be focused through antiquated regulations or something that is opposed to change. In El Salvador, you will find a space to explore your ambitions, be that in technology, energy, medicine, arts, culture, music, or architecture. Just a few years ago, El Salvador was one of the darkest places on the entire planet. But in a short time our country was born again because we remembered that freedom is something that you take. It isn't given to us, it isn't gifted to us, and that like anything that is worth taking in life it should be looked after and maintained. Today El Salvador is a safe country for progress and innovation, but also for families and also as we seek to pursue our own aims. In El Salvador, we welcome you all, mainly for our people, but also for anybody who wishes to contribute to our vision. It won't be easy to do this. The next step, in fact, is perhaps harder than the previous steps that we've had to take. We have freed our country, but we need to maintain this freedom and do so in a world that is increasingly less free. El Salvador has left its past behind that we never wish to return to again. Perhaps it will be too late to avoid the obscure times ahead for our world, but it's not too late to build a bridge and to escape the storm. May God bless humanity. Thank you very much.
So now if we were able to take that speech and piece that thing apart and take the key points that he has talked about, he's talked about the that we are free and we are born again, that we left the past behind us and we don't plan on returning. The thing about that is where a lot of these countries that you see, they break through, but then they go right back. Oh, I'm just going to take a little bit of the past because we need the loans, or we need this, or we need that. They take that, and the next thing you know, they're back in where they were. Let me know what you think about that. And what about if Africa was to join hands with South America? Joining hands with countries like this, not just any of them, but countries like this, and getting with the right leaders that would help them along their journey towards freedom, as they've gone and taken their freedom. And the smallest country in South America has gone and said, hey guys, we're out of that colonization, we're out of the Western ideology, and because they were enslaved in the past too, with Portugal, by Portugal and Britain. They were enslaved as well. So seeing what they've done, seeing what he's done, and where he's saying his country is at right now, in the movement that they took towards independence and taking control over their territory once again, making it a safe place for all the people, a place to prosper, a place to be all you could be. What we're seeing here is just, I think it's worldwide, and it's happening in many little countries around the world right now that are just saying, okay, we're going totally independent here. Independent, meaning we don't need anybody else. We've got independence. We've got freedom because we're allowed to voice our opinions. We're about to do this. And the independence and freedom, taking charge and control of it within their own country, because he said nobody else is going to do it for you. And that's the problem I think we've seen in the past with the colonizers and those powers that be that have created this system. Now we're seeing their system starting to collapse. Little by little, it's collapsing. And there's a new way of doing things coming back. And the old way of doing things is kind of disappearing. People don't want it no more. They don't want it no more. They really never did. But there's a deep state of government. I think that it needs to be, maybe even the battle isn't even going after them. It's just leaving them alone. Keep your distance from us. Keep your distance. We've got our own country to take care of. We've got our own issues. We're going to deal with them within our country. You guys deal with your stuff. We'll deal with ours, and see where we can go from there. Kind of like he did. But anyway, let me know what you think about this. I mean, I honestly am, I am honored, and to say, keep going with it, El Salvador. You got this. Don't look back, because everybody's looking forward in the same direction that you are looking. So God bless you. Peace out, and we'll see you on the next one. Jesus is Lord. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.